Hey guys, so I just got done watching the Lord Farquaad movie, Snow White movie, and look, I do genuinely go into these movies trying to avoid all the behind the scenes drama, separate the art from the artist, and just focus on the movie. But in this case, it's kind of an exception because the behind the scenes drama has just been so relevant to the marketing of the movie. Let's face it, when people hear Snow White, they think of the drama. Turns out telling half the country not to go see a movie and that they should never know peace over their voting decisions, disrespecting the original movie that literally started the Disney empire, and disrespecting your co-star and saying if his parts were cut, it wouldn't even matter. Basically being an activist before being an actress and all around an unlikable person. Turns out that might have consequences.
It's Hollywood, baby.
And some of those consequences were that my theatre, and this was a showing that was an early screening, and those are usually jam-packed, and it was completely empty. So I guess consequences. Plus the popcorn buckets for this movie were really lame, and I know that that is like the least problematic thing about this movie, but I just thought that I would point that out because we've had some really great popcorn buckets lately. We had like a Captain America one where it was actually the Captain America shield. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I honestly thought about whether I even wanted to go see this movie at one stage because of all the drama. But my friend who was with me, she said basically the same thing that I was thinking, that this movie is like a tsunami. You know that the impact is going to be devastating, but you can't help but want to stop and watch. I'll just say one more thing about Rachel Zegler and then we will move on. I just think at the end of the day, these Disney princesses are people that little children look up to. And yes, they're there as a job. They're there to be actors. But if they're making so much of their behind the scenes, real life, political opinions and all that relevant to the discussion and the marketing of the movie, then you need to really think about what you're putting across when your target audience is children. You need to be a good role model. So anyway, when it comes to Disney and their live action adaptations, I feel like when they're good, they're really, really good. There's Christopher Robin, the upcoming How to Train Your Dragon, and Lilo and Stitch all look really, really good. But then when they're bad, they're really bad, like Peter Pan and Wendy. And then Mulan, which was my all-time favorite Disney cartoon as a kid. I'm still not over the fact that they didn't even include Mushu.
All right, that's it. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow.
So basically, I think this movie isn't as bad as I expected it to be. And I think if you have kids, they're going to really enjoy it, because if you have no nostalgic attachment to this movie, it's a fun movie for a kid. But if you're an adult who's seen the original and has heard all the drama, it is a little bit harder to get attached to it. And for those people saying that Disney movies are just for kids, I very much disagree. All the people, the whole 10 people in my cinema, were all adults. Not that that's really saying a lot. So let's start with the good. I feel like the animals were really good. The CGI wasn't too bad. They were cute. The scenes in the forest were really well done. The dwarves' cottage, just all of the forest scenes in general and the world that they created looked really good visually. And the Hi-Ho song was definitely the highlight of the movie for me. That absolutely nailed it. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. And that's what's disappointing. When you think of if they had tried to stay at that quality all throughout the movie, what we could have gotten. And the movie definitely excelled when it was trying to stick to the original. And when it went off script and tried to do its own thing, that's where it dragged. So there was this interview where Rachel said that the idea of the prince was outdated and that he was a stalker. And basically there is no prince in this movie. They replace him with a bandit, and he has a group of bandits who are trying to take back the kingdom in the name of Snow White's late father. And it just feels shoehorned in. It feels like they just tried to cram in this storyline that doesn't fit. And the focus should have been on the dwarves and seeing more of their personalities, because we'll get more into the dwarves later, but in terms of looks, they weren't great. But in terms of their personalities, I did like to see what they were doing with that. And I would have liked to see that expanded upon. So I do definitely feel like they sidelined the idea of true love and romance and all of that in favor of Snow White being a leader. And I mean, come on, the love story aspect is the central core message of the movie. I mean, the prince's kiss is what wakes her up. It's all about true love. And the fact that they wanted to change that, it just feels like, why even tell this story then? Why not tell a different story when it's so crucial to the plot of the movie? But obviously it was all about name recognition for Disney. But true love isn't outdated. A princess getting rescued by a prince isn't an outdated idea. It's a timeless story that stood the test of time and had so many adaptations for a reason, because it still speaks to people. And I think it's so funny how in one of the interviews, Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler were saying that there won't be any true love's kiss. There won't be the prince waking her up and saving her. But then that's exactly what they end up doing, and the prince saves her not just once but twice. He takes an arrow for her, almost killing himself for her. So it just feels like, okay, what message are you trying to send? You're trying to have your cake and eat it too. So obviously they didn't originally intend to have him kiss her and have true love's kiss wake her up. So I think that after that interview, there was so much negative backlash that they had to go ahead and reshoot that part of it, and also reshoot a lot of scenes with the the bandit in it, because there was another interview that I thought was really disrespectful where Rachel says, like, the love interest scenes could be just completely cut from the movie and it wouldn't matter. That's Hollywood, baby, and all of that. And that definitely does not apply to the movie that I just saw. The bandit was in a large part of the movie. His scenes could not have just been cut without a huge chunk of the movie missing. So obviously they went back and reshot a lot of those scenes. So I don't think it was all about the writer's strike. Okay, so let's talk about the dwarves. They are going to give kids more nightmare fuel than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And that's saying something. So basically what happened is we had Peter Dinklage, who I absolutely adored in Game of Thrones, but still I don't agree with what he said. He said that basically it was offensive to have rural little people play the roles of the dwarves. And this is coming from a man who has built a career out of playing those roles. So it felt very pot calling the kettle black of him to say that. And a lot of the people from that community have since come out and said that they disagree with him and that he doesn't speak for all of them. So Disney, in an effort to not be offensive, ended up just causing more offense and not giving people roles who genuinely could have used those roles and probably don't find it easy to get jobs. So we also got these CGI nightmare fuel. And when you put them next to actual humans in the movie, it's so glaringly obvious. But I will say they did keep their personalities well. I didn't like the way they looked, but I liked their personalities. Grumpy, Dopey, Doc, they all felt very in character to the original. So that's why I would have liked to have that explored more than the Bandit storyline. So that was all good and well, except for the fact that Dopey talks for some reason. So the musical numbers, like I said, I loved Hi-Ho. That was my favourite part of the movie. Someday My Prince Will Come was glaringly absent, and instead they replaced it with Princess Problems, which was a song about how Snow White is out of touch with reality, with the regular people and their problems. And yes, look, there's a degree of truth to that. And I feel like that's an interesting idea to explore in the right context, but Snow White is not the right movie for this. Basically, I like the original songs. I wasn't a fan of any of the new songs. Rachel, she can sing, I'll give her that. All else aside, the girl can sing, but her voice just is so different to the original cartoon. And obviously, they're not going to find someone who sounds exactly like the original cartoon, but still, it feels like they could have put in a bit more effort. So my favourite Snow White is hands down the one from Once Upon a Time. I just want to quickly bring this to everybody's attention because if you need something to wash the taste of Rachel Zegler out of your mouth, go watch Once Upon a Time. Their portrayal of Snow White is just spot on. She looks right for the role, but more importantly, she radiates kindness and sweetness. She values true love and putting her husband and family first, while also being a badass and a bandit. Because you can do both. You don't need to weaken men to strengthen women. Femininity is not a weakness. You can be a leader without shoving it down people's throats. All around, this just felt like it had no heart. So the dialogue felt cringy, especially the Queen's lines. The first 2 acts weren't too bad, but the third act was where it fell apart for me. And the costumes just felt very cheap and costume-like. Like they just come from the local costume store. And considering the amount of money that went into this movie, that's a bit strange. So when it comes to the acting, Rachel Zegler was serviceable. She was fine. She wasn't bad enough to stand out. But there were a few parts that she could have done better. And the singing, like I said, was really good. She can definitely sing. It just didn't scream Snow White when I heard her voice. And yes, obviously, she doesn't look the part either. It's meant to be a German fairy tale. And considering it was set in 19th century Germany, that was when the Grimm brothers wrote it. It was a very, very multicultural German village, but gotta check those diversity boxes. We all know she was named after her skin, not after the fact that she was born in a snowstorm. So Gal Gadot, she was so bad that it was noticeable. She was worse than Rachel. When it came to the acting, she cannot do an evil queen. And once again, to compare it to Once Upon a Time, if you want to watch a real evil queen, watch that show.
I'm about to give birth, and an evil sorceress is threatening the future of my child.
To be fair, the first time I was threatening you. Everyone else just became collateral damage.
She was perfection, but Gal Gadot, she feels really miscast and like she's doing a cosplay. I honestly was taken out of it at times with how bad her acting actually was. So basically at the end, Snow White takes back the kingdom. Shocker, I know, nobody saw that coming. And she wins over the Queen's guards with kindness and reminiscing about old times. And okay, that could work to a degree on a few guards, but to win over every single one of them, don't tell me there isn't a few social climbing, power-hungry guards there that would have just been like off with her head. So the ending was really lame. The Queen flees and smashes the mirror when it tells her once again that she isn't the fairest of all. And she gets sucked into the mirror. The end. And you know what? I like the original ending better where she flees and gets chased off a cliff and the vultures eat her to death. It's more in line with the original Grimm brothers. They were fairly dark, and I think that was a better ending. Anyway, look, at the end of the day, it wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. So if you've seen it, let me know what you thought down below. Let me know what your favourite Disney live action movie is. Please like, comment, subscribe, all of that YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.